Thousands of lawsuits in the first days of the Trump administration will be prepared and filed in federal court to oppose his radical agenda. Project 2025 isn't just the MAGA playbook, it's now our playbook in opposition in filing those lawsuits. It's the only way. The worst policies of the Trump administration the first time around were successfully opposed by the filing of thousands of lawsuits then, and we're prepared now. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network. In a series of hot takes, I'm going to go over how organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union and other progressive free-thinking organizations are already prepared and have been prepared for the inevitability or the unlikely result of Donald Trump becoming the president of the United States again, and they are ready with lawsuits already in the can to be filed. I'm going to do it by topic. There's a great series of memos by the ACLU about how they're going to handle civil rights, voting rights, abortion rights, criminal rights, immigration rights, and all of that in the upcoming Trump administration, which is they're already ready to go. Let's start with abortion. We know what they're going to do because they told us in Project 2025 what they're going to do, and we know what we're going to do in response. Particularly, the Trump administration is going to try to use a law from 1873 called the Comstock Act. It was passed in the Victorian old-timey days when abortion was completely illegal in the country. Of course, before the Roe decision, making it a constitutional right of a woman, before it was ripped away by this recent version of the Supreme Court. The Comstock Act will be used to attack mifepristone. Mifepristone is one of the two drugs in a two-drug cocktail, a two-drug regime that is used by women 50% of the time in order to have medicated abortions at home. Mifepristone was approved as safe by the FDA in 2000. So the two-prong attack that we know Donald Trump's going to do is to use the Comstock Act to try to stop mail order mifepristone from being mailed conveniently to women's homes, make them travel thousands or hundreds of miles to go pick up pills, if at all, by somebody. And then the second way they're going to do is they're going to put a meat puppet in charge of the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, to all of a sudden announce after 24 years that mifepristone is dangerous and try to take it off the market. Let me break down each of those and what the lawsuits that are going, not if, when the lawsuits are filed, what the issues are going to be. Let's start with the Comstock Act. Under the Comstock Act, which was passed in 1873, when abortion was completely illegal, which said that any device or product that was what they considered indecent or vile, which created an abortion, which caused an abortion, was illegal to be mailed through the mail, right? Because this is, again, when abortion was illegal. Now, abortion is legal in 2/3 of the country, one way or the other. It is legal, including recent amendments to state constitutions in 4 different states that legalized it. So the Comstock Act should no longer be used. It should be given to the dustbin of history. We should never be talking about the Comstock Act. But MAGA has fallen in love with it. Project 2025 has fallen in love with its application to try to kill mifepristone from being mailed to women. So lawsuits get filed to challenge the use of the Comstock Act, that it's not being properly applied, that it was never intended under the current circumstances where abortion is legal in a majority of states, even though it's no longer a constitutional right. And so we're going to have a federal judge have to interpret whether the Comstock Act is appropriately being applied or not. Now, a ruling from the summer also helps us from the United States Supreme Court, if you can believe it. There was one ruling that helped us in which they said that agencies like the Food and Drug Administration no longer get deference for their interpretation of a statute or a rule. Great. That means we don't have to hear from the meat puppet that Donald Trump put in charge of the FDA, who's anti-abortion and anti-woman and reproductive rights. We don't have to hear from him. Only judges get to interpret that under that new decision by the United States Supreme Court we call Loper-Bright. So we file, or the ACLU or other organizations file their suit in a friendly federal court with a Clinton, Obama, or Biden appointee, have them declare that the Comstock Act is not applicable any longer, put it to the dustbin of history. It's not applicable to kill mifepristone from being mailed to women. And then we take that up to a friendly circuit court like the Second Circuit or the Ninth Circuit in California, and we're off and running. And then at the Supreme Court, you aim for Amy Coney Barrett to try to get her over to rule in favor of that. That's the strategy. The other way that Donald Trump is going to try to undermine reproductive rights for women and abortion rights for women is through his Food and Drug Administration, as I said before. The head of the FDA is going to be some anti-abortion person. We know it. It's going to be a Heritage Foundation person handpicked by Leonard Leo, the Federalist Society founder, or somebody else. And suddenly they're going to announce after 24 years of having originally found it to be in every administration legal and safe. Mifepristone in this scientific studies has been shown to be safer, not as safe, safer than the common aspirin, safer to take for this purpose. And so when they try that, they're going to then use organizations like the ACLU and others, and the Democratic National Committee and others are going to use the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA, to challenge this new flip, this new switch that's been turned off by the new Trump FDA, which is completely at variance and 180 degrees away from 24 years of precedent. They can't do that. There's a thing called the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. And under the Administrative Procedures Act, there is a process that has to properly be used to repeal regulations. You have to get comment from the public. You have to You have to have public hearings sometimes. You have to have industry input. You have to have proper scientific input. And if they screw up any of those things, and they'll screw up all of those things in a Trump administration, then you argue a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act, and you rip that new interpretation off the books. That's through another lawsuit. That's why organizations like the ACLU filed almost 500 lawsuits against the last Trump administration, and most of them were successful. This is the way. This is the way to ensure that Donald Trump, with a stroke of a pen, in some sort of executive order, doesn't try to further undermine reproductive rights of women, ban them from using medicated abortions at home through mifepristone, either through the Comstock Act or through an improper interpretation or a new regulation of an FDA headed by an anti-abortionist that's placed there by Donald Trump. I think the purpose of these hot takes, and I'm going to do a series of them about how we oppose through the court system, through filing, like firing it out of a fire hose, through filing of these federal cases, how we oppose everything in the radical agenda. As I said at the top, and as the ACLU has said, resignation and withdrawal from the battlefield is not a strategy. We need to lean in, right? Not lean back. And we're going to do it, and we're going to follow it right here on the MeidasTouch Network, which we built with your hands and our hands, and we're going to continue to use it as a force of good to support lawsuits and organizations like, of course, the ACLU, Court Accountability Action, and all of that. And, of course, we got the new channel, Legal AF, on YouTube. You find it at Legal AF MTN for the MeidasTouch Network. And there we're really going to get into a deep dive of all the things that I'm covering right here on this particular hot take. I'm breathless. It's important. We're ready. We're ready to oppose. We're ready to be the party, the progressives, the free thinker in opposition. Democracy and aspects of it may have just been put in a cage by some voters. We got the keys to unlock it in our pocket. We'll talk about it every day and every hour on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. Until my next contribution, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.